Good morning, everyone. Depending on where you are, it might be afternoon already. My name is Ryan Agazi, and I'm the Teacher Development Manager for Macmillan Education International Curriculum. So today we are going to be focusing on synthetic phonics, delivered by our lovely literacy expert, Charlotte Rance, who will be uncovering and unpacking some of the key areas of synthetic phonics. So please do feel free to write in the chat or question box that you will see if you have any comments, and we will do some Q&A towards the end of the session as well. So I'll pass it on to Charlotte for now, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to put the camera on for a short moment and wave to you. Hello, how are you? I'm not going to keep the webinar on for the session just because the internet's been playing up a little bit today. But just find out, what time is it where you are? Write your answers in the chat box. Am I saying good morning, good evening, good night? What time is it? Oh, 5:30. Excellent. 1 hour ahead. 11:31 p.m. Wow, Phil, you've stayed up late this evening. Excellent. Right, I'm going to pop the camera off so that we can get on with the session. Hello, Lucy at 4:30. Must be in the UK. How are you, darling? All right. So let's get started. Right. Ooh, Raina, a number of people saying they can't hear anything. Okay, right. Why are we here this afternoon? We are here to talk about phonics. Now, as you can see from the title of the session, we are talking about building a great foundation. And as we, as teachers, know, it's very important to ensure that our students have the best foundation of learning so that they can build on everything that we're teaching in the classroom. Now, phonics is widely regarded to be a very good foundation for beginning reading, and internationally has become very much part of the curriculum. So we are here today to talk about a few different things. But before we get started, I want to find out how much you're all awake this evening. So we're going to start with a little spelling bee. I'm going to test your spelling abilities. I'm going to give you 7 words. I will say the word out loud. I will give you the word in a sentence, spelling bee rules. And what I'd like you to do is write the words that you hear in the box, just the individual word. So our first word is disco. Disco. Charlotte danced all night at the disco. There we go. Excellent spelling. Well done, teachers. All awake. Fabulous. All right. Our second word is 2. 2 is the number after 1. Good, good, good. Excellent. We can all count as far as 2. We are definitely awake. All right. My third word is plate. He put the dinner on the plate. Excellent. Good. Nice spelling. All right. Starting to get more complicated now. Our fourth word is circle. The clock was shaped like a circle. Oh, good. You are awake. All right. Word number 5 is shoulder. Your shoulder connects your arm to your body. Can't beat you guys, can I? Let's see, we've got 2 left. 2 left. Number 6 in our spelling bee is February. February is often cold in England. Bravo, bravo. And our final word, and I'm pretty certain this is going to get some of you. Our final word is segue. Segue. The presenter segued between the 2 news items. Segue. Give us a go. Right. we are going to come back to these words in a little while. Okay. So, what are we going to be doing this afternoon / this evening / this night? Three main aims that we want to get through today. Firstly, we're going to start by talking about phonics and the benefit of phonics in the classroom. Then we're going to have a bit more of a deeper dive into synthetic phonics and what it is, how we go about doing it, with two key areas of segmenting and blending. And finally, we're going to have a few top tips for you to remember going forward. So, let's rock and roll. Let's come back to our little spelling test. What makes these words difficult to spell? I'm going to bring them up on the screen, and I'd like you, as a teacher, to think about what might make this complicated for your learners. So, our first word was disco. What might be tricky about this word? Pop your answers into the chat box. What sort of things might make this word more complicated for a learner to read when they're learning English? Are there any letters or anything that might cause complications? The vowels sometimes, says Lorena. Yeah, the O or the I sound, possible. What about the combination between the C and the SC sound together? Yeah, we've got some issues around that. The letter C sometimes makes a K sound, sometimes makes a K sound, sometimes makes a bit of a S sound, doesn't it? So children might be finding that difficult, or it might be the blend between the S and the K together, sk. Okay, what about the next word, along? It was to, wasn't it? What might make this difficult to read or to spell? Haha. Yeah, that W. It is also a homophone. You are absolutely right. So we've got two problems. Number one, we have a silent letter. And in England, we love a silent letter. And then, of course, there are multiple spellings of to. Is it T-O? Is it T-O-O? Or is it T-W-O? Tashika has mentioned sight words. We're going to come back to those in a little while, Tashika, but very good point. Okay. Our third word was plate. Doesn't seem very difficult to me. What might be complicated here? Ah, yes, there we go. Everybody's old friend, the silent E. Yeah. So that E at the end changes the vowel sound in the middle, makes it much longer. It's not plat, it's plate. Many students might find that complicated. All right. What about this one? Circle. Circle, circle. Why would that be a difficult one? C and L combination, says Lucy. Possible. That cool, the dark L sound. It's not circle. Ah, Liliana's also pointed out that different C. Absolutely. We've got two letter C's in this word and they make two separate sounds. We've got a S at the beginning and a K at the end. Sorry. Right. Our next word was shoulder. Anything in here that might be complicated? Sh. Yep, a shush combination at the beginning, says Phil. That OU sound in the middle, indeed. Great ideas. And the sound at the end, absolutely. That if you're using British pronunciation, certainly we don't say shoulder, do we? That R suddenly disappears from the end. Excellent. All right. What about this one then? February. Nothing difficult there, surely. Nothing difficult there. Okay, that BR combination. You'll find that many people, many native speakers of English don't say the R sound. They'll say February instead of February. For students, that's going to be a hugely confusing combination. And that UA together as well can be quite a challenge. All right, are you ready for our final one? Our final word was segue. Let's bring it up. There you go, segue. That's how we spell segue. Anybody surprised out there? Anybody very confused as to how this word is pronounced, segue? Yeah. I was getting this word wrong for a very long time. I had seen the word before. I'd heard the word before. When I was reading the word, in my head, the sound was sieg into something. But when I heard the word, I understood segue had the same meaning. It was only about 4 years ago that I figured out they were the same word. It doesn't apply to normal spelling rules, does it? Why is that, do you think? Does anyone know? How come this word looks so strange in comparison to its pronunciation? Ah, Lucy's nailed it. Lucy asks, is it from another language? Is it a borrowed word, says Maria. It is indeed. I believe it's an Italian word, if we have any Italian speakers in there. Lorena says it's even difficult for me. Yes, it is a word that we've taken, a loan word from another language. So obviously, English full of those as well, making learning to read in English for native speakers, for non-native speakers, very, very complicated. Now, what the response to this has been is an introduction of synthetic phonics. And here is a statement from the Department of Education back in 2010 that said the evidence is clear. When we teach synthetic phonics, it is the most effective way of teaching young children to read, especially with those at risk of having problems with reading. When we think about that, of course, we might think of learning needs that cause differences in cause difficulties with reading, but also what we can consider is that many people today, many children today, are international learners of English. So simultaneously, while they learn to read in English, they're probably still perfecting reading in their own languages. Different symbols with different sounds, and also in many cases, even different alphabets that they're trying to get to know, which is why we've seen an increase across the world in the introduction of phonics, with that in our national curricula in native English speaking countries, but also more and more in the international sector. So, phonics, why? What are we going to get from teaching phonics? First of all, what we can say is it does help us to build those base skills around that. So it's going to improve our reading skills. It also improves pronunciation and spelling. It raises that awareness with the students of the different patterns of English and allows them, in turn, to become much more empowered as students. It gives them the opportunity to take new words and to take ownership of their words because they can understand how those words work together in terms of their spelling and what sounds that might bring. It also increases reading fluency. Now, even when you are an accurate, knowledgeable reader of English, especially if you're an international student, the challenge of reading English as fluently as potentially you do your own language can often take a very long time. I know for me, when I've learnt languages, reading has always been the skill I've struggled with most. When we have a strong understanding of phonics and an ability to sound out, break down, and segment those sounds, we are able to read much more fluently, taking on more words and more information as we read, because we're not spending brain power and time on trying to understand what that word sounds like. Of course, the other thing that it does do is encourage student autonomy. And as teachers, for many of us, that is one of our biggest goals, enabling our students to do everything for themselves. We know that they're not going to be in the classroom at all times. We need to be able to support them to learn for themselves. And as a learner tool, phonics is incredibly valuable. So what is it? There's the question many of us are asking ourselves. What is phonics? Essentially, what we can say is phonics is a way of making a connection between the phonemes of the English language, the sounds of the English language, and the graphemes, the way we write those sounds down. Can anyone tell me in the chat box what number of phonemes, what number of sounds do we have in the English language? How many sounds in English? Phil's gone 46, very close. Oh, Denise has come in with the right answer there, 44. There are 44 different sounds of English. Next pop quiz question. How many letters are there in the English alphabet? This should be an easy one. 26, excellent, 26, very good. How many of you needed to sing the song to yourself as you figured that out? So, can anybody see the problem? I am not a mathematical genius, but I know that if I have 26 letters and 44 sounds, my language is not in any way a phonetic language. We've got more sounds than we have letters. So the important thing to remember about graphemes is graphemes does not necessarily mean individual letters. A grapheme might be one letter. It could be 2 letters, it could be 3 letters, or it could be 4 letters, okay? A grapheme is a letter or combination of letters that represents a sound. So let's take an example. I'm going to say a word. I want you to tell me how many phonemes are in it. How many individual sounds in this word? House. Count them out to yourself and type your answer in the question box. How many sounds in the word house? Let's work them out together. 2 is one answer we've got here. 3, says Maria. 3, says Belen. 4, let's sound it out together. We have got h, ow, and s. H, ouse, h, ouse, house. There we go. 3 sounds in the word house. All right. How many graphemes in the word house? Here's your next test. People coming straight in with 5. Ooh, someone's gone with 2. 3, there we go. Denise comes in first with the correct answer. The number of graphemes in the word house is 3. H is represented by the letter H. H is H. Ow is made with OU and S is made as an SE. So 3 sounds, 3 graphemes, 5 letters. So remember what we said, a grapheme does not always mean one single letter. It might be a combination of the 2 or 3. Okay, let's do another little test for you. Give you a sound of English. The sound is A. The sound A, how do we write that? How many possible combinations of letters can make the sound A? Do you think it's 4, 5, 6, or 7? 4, 5, 6, or 7. How many different ways to write A? Shall we map them out? So the sound A might be a single letter A on its own. I saw a dog. It might be an EY together, like a bird of prey, EY there on the end. It might be an AY together, as in day or say. It could be an EI. It could be an AI. It could be, like our word plate, a silent E. Or it could be just like the number 8, EIGH. So that's a 4-letter grapheme there for that sound. We've got 7 different ways that we can write the sound A. So when we say to our students, okay, write this sentence down, the cat stood on the plate, our students have 7 possible letter combinations to put with P, L, and T to make plate. English gets more and more complicated the more we think about it, doesn't it? Right. Types of phonics. What have we got? There are 3 very widely used forms of phonics. We've got analytic phonics, embedded phonics, and synthetic phonics. And these are the 3 types of phonics that are most frequently found around the world. Analytic phonics, the idea is comparison. So when a child is studying an analytical phonics program, they are comparing similarities and differences between words. For example, what is the same about pet and pot? Teacher, it starts with P, it ends with T. Excellent. What's different? Oh. Okay, brill. What's similar and different between book and cook? Which part of the words is the same? What part of the words are different? It's analytic, but the biggest criticism of analytic phonics is that it is not a systematic approach to phonics. There's no logical order, and students might learn things in different ways. They might learn more complicated words before they need to, etc. So without a system, it doesn't have clear beneficial results. When we come to embedded phonics, the big problem is that embedded phonics is taught as needed. So if any of you teach main course English classes, embedded phonics is the sort of phonics you usually find on the page in your course book. For example, if you're teaching students about regular past tenses, you might do a bit of phonics work around the different sounds that ED can make. In English, the ED ending has 3 possibilities. It could be T, it could be D, or it could be id. So if we're studying embedded phonics, when we start to learn about ED endings, that's when we would learn the phonics. It's taught as it's needed. The problem is that because of this, not everything gets covered. You don't have all of those foundational building blocks that children need. So they will constantly still find things that are confusing to them that they don't understand. This is why synthetic phonics has become the most widely used method around the world. The systematic approach that synthetic phonics takes is very, very logical, and across the board in all synthetic phonics programs, you will find phonics being taught in the same way. It starts off with the simple, easy to understand combinations of phonemes and graphemes and moves on to the more complicated combinations and the strange, less frequent pronunciation and sound representations that you might find. Okay, so synthetic phonics. Let's computer's gone a bit slow. What do we actually expect our children to learn throughout that program? The first thing that we're going to cover within a synthetic phonics program will be the 44 phonemes of the English language. They will learn all of those sounds of English. They will also then learn those graphemes to represent the phonemes. And we said earlier, there are 44 sounds in English. In total, there are over 120 graphemes to represent those sounds. So you've got 44 different sounds of English, but 120 plus ways of writing them down. So what you find with a synthetic phonics program, as I said, it needs to be done in a systematic and cumulative order. They learn the most frequent first, and they build on that every day, revising and revisiting everything that they have learnt previously. Phonics will also teach children how to blend the phonemes in the written word to read the word. How do letters combine in English? If you're a Spanish speaker of English, probably you have a tendency with S words when they begin to add in extra vowel sounds. I used to work in Turkey, and in Turkey, consonant combinations can be very complicated. So students would say student rather than student, because st together does not happen naturally in a Turkish language. When you're working with lots of different nationalities in an international classroom, you're going to find that different children have different needs. But if you're following a synthetic, systematic phonics approach, then you can be confident that you are covering everything in terms of that. Phonics will also teach children how to segment the phonemes in a spoken word to be able to spell the word. So how to identify the individual sounds in that word, how to be able to sound out the word house, break that down. It also teaches that a phoneme, a single phoneme, can be represented in multiple ways, by single letters or by groups of 2 or 3 or 4 letters. So as our example showed, we have one sound, A, but we have 7 different possible ways of writing it. And children who are following a synthetic phonics program will meet all of those different representations. Of course, they also need to learn that the same grapheme can make different sounds. So our example from earlier, the letter C, it can be on its own representing S, and it can also be represent a K sound as well. Excellent, thank you. One of our colleagues has just said that they are teaching in Jamaica, and this is a melting pot for many different cultures. So there are lots of different challenges that are being faced in one classroom. And I think for many of us, that is often a big challenge. So phonics is a great way of ensuring that everybody is getting the same balance and support. Now, as we said, a synthetic phonics program is a systematic approach. We work from the easiest to understand and we build up from that. What this means is that when we're teaching a synthetic phonics program, we don't start with the alphabet. That letter A can be 1,001 different sounds. Instead, we start going through according to a letter based on simplicity. So every phonics program that is following a synthetic phonics approach starts with the same group of letters, and it follows the same system. And that letter system you will see at the top of this page. This is the placemat for level 1 of the new phonics program from Macmillan International, Snappy Sounds. So synthetic phonics, and as we can see on the top row, we're introducing 5 sounds: st, m, p, and a, like ant. Now, these 5 sounds mean that by the end of week 1, students are able to start making words, reading words, breaking words down. With 5 lessons, you're suddenly able to say words like at, as, sat, mat, pat, etc. And you can start to build up simple sentences and simple word combinations. Of course, this is level 1. So this is the first 10 weeks of sounds that are introduced. Snappy Sounds has 8 levels across 2 years. So by the end, they meet all 120 of the most common grapheme representations. As we can see from this placemat, the k sound that they're introduced to is the hard k. So they actually meet 2 graphemes immediately for the same sound, the K sound and the K, the C K as well. Now, one of the key skills that we need to practice in a synthetic phonics program is segmenting. And segmenting, as you can see from our little snappy croc here, is identifying the individual sounds in a word. Hearing the word cat and understanding cat has 3 sounds, k, a, t. And together we can break those down and spell them out. And that's segmenting. And segmenting is an area in the classroom that we can have a lot of fun with. This is my classroom. These are my students. And one thing that I like to do with my students in the classroom is play little games. One of the ones I like to use is the sound hunt. So we all know what a treasure hunt is. In a sound hunt, we are looking for those sounds in the classroom. And what I would say as a teacher is, okay, children, 1 minute, stand up, run around the classroom. How many items, how many objects can you find that begin with a t sound? So have a look at the picture. What can you see that starts with a t sound? Type your answers. Now, excellent. Table, teacher. Good, 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 good. Yes, we've got a table, we've got a teacher. Have we got anything else? Not sure. All right. Now, as a teacher, you're also encouraging students to recognize where sounds appear in words and get those structures right. So you can add levels of complexity to this game. It's like, okay, find me the items, find me things in the classroom that end with a d sound. So they might come up and point to the board or touch their head. And we can recognize those individual sounds by the items that they bring us. We can also encourage them to identify any item that contains a sound to add in even more difficulty or challenge to it. And of course, we can use more and more complex graphemes along the way as well. And we can encourage them to come up with lots of different representations. Another great fun thing to do is, of course, bingo. And here you will find an example of a bingo sheet. Bingo is a great opportunity for teachers to practice all of the bits and pieces that can be quite confusing for our students. So for many language learners, for many second language English speakers, our S blends, as we see, can be quite complicated. Lorena, I made this one myself. Lorena has asked, where can we find these bingo cards? And the great thing is that you can use bingo to practice anything you need to. You can also use the time to get the children to make their own bingo cards. So basically what we need to do is ensure that we're revising. So here I'm revising our S blends, sp, st, sm, and sl, sleep, smile, stop, and sport. Common sounds. I've also got the individual sound and a z sound in there as well. And then what I would do as a teacher is I would read out words that contain those sounds. So when the children hear them, they can make the connections, make the line, and complete their bingo card there. Now, the wonderful thing about phonics is that there is so much we can do to practice it that children never get bored. What we can see here is an example of one of the Snappy Sounds teaching cards. So as you can see, the sound that we are practicing in this lesson is T, and T comes with a visual representation, an anchor point for the children. So we know it is T, and it's the sound that we find with tap. Tap, tap. Now, on the back of the teacher card, we've got a full lesson plan, and this is for the teacher. So what you'll notice is that at the beginning of every lesson, there is a revision section. And as we can say, phonics, synthetic phonics is a fast-paced learning experience. You are constantly learning and adding to what you know. So it's very, very important for the children to revise and to review. You'll also notice that the first two sections of the lesson involve saying and hearing. And another key thing to remember in terms of phonics is that as much as possible, we should always use the oral pronunciation and listening skills before we move on to reading and writing. Why? Because English is crazy and we can spell it in very complicated ways. So we need to make sure that that pronunciation and that sounding is correct and the listening is correct before we attach that to those graphemes. Now, as I've said, all synthetic phonics programs follow the same process. It's always the same graphemes taught in the same order, no matter what program you are using. But one of the things that's quite unique about Snappy Sounds is the methodology that is used. And throughout the lesson, what we'll see here is the I do, we do, you do structure. So it always begins with the teacher acting as the model, the teacher demonstrating, and then the teacher giving guided practice, working with the children to ensure that they're getting all of their confidence built up, that they're comfortable, that they're happy, and then moving on to the you do section. And this is not a process that is 1, 2, 3. We start with the modeling, we give some time for we do together, we go back to modeling and introducing new ideas and skip between those processes, building that confidence so that children can then do it confidently on their own. Now, someone mentioned sight words earlier. And sight words are a very important part of phonics learning as a process. Our sight words are our high frequency words that are potentially not easy to break down and decode because they have different complicated sounds within them or combinations that the children have not readily learnt yet. So, for example, we'll see here, the first 3 of the high frequency words for level 1 are articles, a and the letter I as the word I, that first person pronoun there. I in level 1 is taught as I because that's its most common representation as a grapheme. The letter A is taught as in ant, A for ant, which is sometimes correct as an article, but other times we say A. And of course, that TH together is a blend sound, so it's a moving there. It's individual grapheme that moves it through. So these sight words, we call these sight words because children are taught to recognize them on sight. They're taught to see the shape of the word and remember the sound that goes with it. Now, blending is the other key skill that we need to work with. And blending is putting those sounds together to make words. So understanding it and then combining them together to make that word it, sit, sit, enabling children to read naturally and to blend those words together. And the best practice for blending comes with encoding and decoding. So Encoding is listening to words and putting them down in graphemes. Encoding is writing, whereas decoding is reading. And for most learners of phonics and most teachers of phonics, the most commonly used tool in your box will be your decodable readers. So here's an example. Looking at the level 1 placemat earlier, how early, which week of the phonics program do you think children would be able to read this book? Have a look at the words on the page. How many weeks of learning phonics before they can read this book on their own, do you think? 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Oh, Tashika has gone with 1 week, and you are absolutely right. This is a book that is designed to be read in week 1 of the program. So you'll see we've got the sight words I and A on the page. The only other words that we use are all words that the children can decode from those 5 letters we looked at earlier. I am Tam, a mat, and the name of the rabbit is Sam. Now, this is key to ensuring that you've got a really good decodable reader in front of you. The first thing, all quality decodable readers should gradually and systematically introduce those letters and introduce those sounds and give the children lots and lots of practice. Your decodable readers have to work at the same pace that you are teaching. So it's very, very important that they are never meeting something in their reader that they cannot do on their own. A decodable reader will never teach a child something new. They are designed for practice. We must learn before we can read. Of course, they should only use words that can be decoded and common high frequency words that we have already taught them as sight words. And as we saw on that page, check, we have sorted that out there. Okay, now, of course, these are readers and we want children to enjoy them. So a good decodable reader should make sense. It should have meaning. It should be something interesting to read. Yes, it might be simple, and yes, it might use very simple words, but they should also be able to enjoy it. However, 2 things that I will bring up now that are different to normal reading books. As when we work with young learners in reading time, in reading circles, as teachers for us, it is very, very common to encourage children to predict what's going to happen in the story, to use the pictures to guess the meaning of the words, etc. But in a good decodable reader, we need to reduce that support a little bit. The images shouldn't encourage students to guess a word. We need to understand that they are able to read it. Again, the words, the text, it shouldn't be too predictable. It, again, should allow the children to show that they are reading truly. So in the classroom, you would get them to focus on the words on the page and then ask questions about the pictures afterwards. The focus is, can they sound out? Can they decode the words in front of them? And finally, the important thing to note when you're choosing your decodable readers, make sure that they have got age-appropriate vocabulary only. Some phonics readers contain words that the children will never need, just because they fit the pattern, just because they match the sound. And a really good decodable reader should always have age-appropriate vocabulary only. All right. Activities we can use for blending in the classroom come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. One of the things I quite enjoy doing is playing rhyming games. So I might show the children some pictures on the board, or bring in some objects, and I will set them the challenge to understand what is the sound of the word, what can I find that rhymes with it. And then to add in a bit of challenge, you can always push them a bit further depending on where they are with the phonics program. So for example, we've got the word shoe here. As we know, the oo sound in shoe is a very uncommon grapheme. It's an OE. Students might go and find a blue pen and say, teacher, it rhymes, blue and shoe. Fantastic. Tell me what the difference is between those words. How do we spell them out? Which other graphemes are we finding? If they find a boot, is that oo the same grapheme as shoe or blue? So again, you can add in extra challenge depending on where your children are in the learning process. Now, one of the biggest criticisms that we find in phonics programs, especially in an international context, is the nonsense words, the unknown nonsense words. Essentially, it was placed into phonics as an assessment point, and you will find these appearing in all phonics assessment materials. Basically, as teachers, we know parents will do anything to ensure their children pass the test. So many teachers worry that the children aren't sounding out the words, that they've just learnt all of the words in the storybook as a sight word. Phonics then creates words that are not real. Lorena has asked, are these real words? No, they are not. Don't worry, you did not miss half of the dictionary. None of these words are real, but they are all readable as phonics words. So if we take the first word, frud, we've got fr together as we might find in fruit, but we've also got ud as in could or should. It's not a real word, but if you've learnt the graphemes, you can break that down. Now, obviously, in a native English context, in a British classroom, in a British school, when you're following phonics, teachers can find it easy just to say, okay, it's not a real word, but if it was a real word, how would you sell it? How would you say it out loud? That's not to say that all teachers in England approve of this. Many of them do not like these at all. But I think that in an international context, we have a much bigger problem. And our bigger problem is that for our children, they're not going to know, is this a real word or is this not? Their parents may not know whether it's a real word or not either. So my suggestion to teachers is, if you feel that using unknown words and non-words is going to be more confusing for your children than not using them, always skip that bit of the assessment. If you're happy to use them, if you're confident that, you know, this will work in your classroom, go right ahead. But in an international context, there is definitely a strong argument for skipping that part of a phonics program. And they are, as we said, unknown words. So, coming to the end of our session, a few little recommendations for phonics and implementing a synthetic phonics program into your classroom. Now, the best way to ensure that your students are learning phonics is to try and get at least 5 or 6 dedicated phonics lessons per week. It should not be done as a slow process. Phonics is finished within 2 years. 2 years to learn 120 plus graphemes. And by doing 5 or 6 individual graphemes per week and working with 5 or 6 sounds in a week, you're enabling your children to be able to speed up their learning process and tackle new words very effectively. Make sure that phonics is fun and active. Get them up, get them involved. We know that very young learners have a short attention span. They need to spend their energy. And phonics should be active. All of the tricks and techniques that you use in your other lessons can be used in phonics. You can change most word games to practice different phonics sounds. Flashcard activities work fantastically. Get them up, get them moving. and involve the whole class, of course. Make sure everybody is doing everything. Golden rule, always remember, spoken first, written second. Practice our speaking, practice our listening before we practice our reading and our writing. Drill those sounds, drill that pronunciation, and then bring in the writing. And of course, for many of you, you will also teach main course English classes alongside your phonics. Refer back to your phonics. Take 5 minutes in every English lesson to review what you practiced in phonics. Point it out when you can see it. If you know that the child could decode the word on their own, let them do it. Don't read it to them. Get them to practice as much as possible, because the more that they can practice, the easier it will become. So, just a little quick summary quiz. Can you write your answers into your answer box? I'm going to show you a few questions. Let's see if you've been paying attention. Question number 1. What is a phoneme? Write your answer into the question box. Yay, everyone's paying attention. Absolutely, it is a sound. A phoneme is a sound. Absolutely. All right, question number 2. What is a grapheme? Lots of people writing a letter. Can we be a bit more specific? Letter or letters? Oh, Maria has written the written form of a sound, the letters that represent a sound. Absolutely. It could be a combination. It doesn't mean a single letter. Good, good. Okay. What is segmenting? Answers in a box, please. Segmenting is identification of individual sounds. Brilliant. Fill in first with the correct answer there. Hearing and identifying the individual sounds in a word. So if we say my name's Charlotte, how many sounds are there in Charlotte? Sh, R, T. 5 sounds. 9 letters, 5 sounds. All right. And if segmenting is identifying the sounds, what is blending? Implementation, putting the sounds together. Absolutely. Putting individual sounds together to make words. Brill. Okay. Final question then. What is the difference between encoding and decoding? Encoding is excellent. Encoding is writing the word that you hear, and decoding is reading the word you can see. Absolutely brilliant. Great work, team. So we've got a little bit of time to take some questions. If you have any, I am happy to answer them. Got about 5 minutes that we can use. So if you do have any questions, feel free to write them in the box. If you don't have any questions, that's absolutely fine. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you very much for helping out and answering our questions. Lorena says, where can I find the resources of this topic? We will be sending out a PDF of the slides. And if you want to have a further look at Snappy Sounds, there'll be a link at the end. Would you recommend this program for remedial readers? Absolutely. Denise has asked that question. Phonics is designed to give everybody the same platform and the same support along. So taking your time and working with all of those classes, working together, phonics is absolutely great, and there is also plenty of guidance and support online for those students to get that extra support. All right, other questions? Oh, so many coming in. Let me see. Let me find one. Can you recommend a phonics book for pre-primary students? I would thoroughly recommend Snappy Sounds. I think it's really easy to use, and I think it's great as a teacher because you've got your lesson plan right there. So Snappy Sounds is available. Talk to your Macmillan reps about it and they will be able to help. Questions, so many questions. For a non-native speaker, how many letters can we start in beginnings? I would recommend that even with non-native speakers of English, you still work at the same pace with your phonics program. There is absolutely, so you're working with 5 or 6 different sounds per week and attaching those graphemes to them. But there's absolutely no reason. Phonics and synthetic phonics programs have been used very well internationally for quite a long time. Maria has asked, would you recommend dictation? Maria, I love a good dictation activity. We did run right at the beginning of the session. I gave you a word and I made you write it down. Absolutely, give it a go. Dictation works really, really well. Okay, someone has asked what's more beneficial, Snappy Sounds or Jolly Phonics? They are both synthetic phonics programs, so they both follow the same syllabus content. They will both teach the exact amount of money. So my recommendation would be have a look at both of them and decide which one looks best for you. Okay. Any more questions that I have missed? Yes, someone's just brought up Floppy Phonics. That is also a synthetic phonics program as well. So again, you're going to get the same system and the same process. All right. I will hand you over to Raina and let her tell you a little bit about what's coming up. Thank you very much for your participation and all of your wonderful questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Charlotte. Super insightful, and I think the teachers are really engaged as well. So really appreciate delivering our literacy webinar, and I really hope that the teachers and the attendees felt they learned something new. Or reinforce what they already know and implementing into their classes. So just a few little bits here. So if you'd like to have a look at our website for further information, Charlotte's actually written a few blog posts for us focusing on phonics, and she will be writing a phonics booklet for us as well, which will be available in the coming weeks. Also, we do have a YouTube page which has some of our previous webinars for both, well, for maths, literacy and science, so do have a look at those as well. If you do have any questions, feel free to email us on our email address there. And also, if you have suggestions for future webinars, then do feel free to email and let us know your thoughts. Charlotte will be delivering another session focusing on practical tips on phonics on the 14th of April. So you will be receiving an email shortly with your certificates and also upcoming webinar links as well. So please do watch out for those as well. So until then, thank you once again to Charlotte for all her hard work and also for all the attendees for joining. So see you soon and thank you once again. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.